US redditors that never lived in the South. Do you think of the South as a racist place? I notice a lot of people on Reddit seem to think of the South as the Mecca of racism. Mecca equals giant robot from anime, manga. Mecca equals holy city of Islam that people make pilgrimages to. Mecca equals any place that attracts a lot of people for a particular reason. Like Mecca for Muslims. There's racism everywhere. But it was only traveling through the southern states that I, as a white person, had it shoved in my face. Like having complete strangers randomly use slurs for Hispanic and black people in casual conversation, just assuming I'd be cool with it. Like guy who I just met and I'll never see again. How can you go from being so kind to me, who you don't know, and so completely horrid to other people, who you also don't know, in the same breath? It happened more than once while I was traveling through Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi on a road trip. Just out of nowhere. Warnings that slur owns a gas station and will cheat me. Complaining about slurs in the neighborhood ruining the economy. Complaining about having to serve slurs. Having lived in 14 different states, all over the US, I'd say that there is a fair bit of racism pretty much everywhere. It's just more out in the open in the South. That being said, not everyone in the South is racist. And if someone says they have no problem with other cultures, you can take their word for it. Unlike up north where you're never really sure. Used to work with this old black man in his 70s. He would say he wanted to move back down south because of the good old-fashioned polite racism. I think he felt like racism was everywhere but socially ingrained in the South more. But with its social ingraining it also adopts Southern surface-level politeness, whereas here it's all neo-Nazis and angry racism. In more rural areas yes, in cities not so much. The racism is everywhere. I'm from the South, but nothing scares me more than northern Idaho and western Montana. Fuck. I've lived in the South and the North. The South is just a little open with stupid things like the rebel flags. But the North is just as racist in a lot of places, even more so. BC there aren't large ethnic populations. From just looking exclusively at the internet, yeah, it seems at least more racist than northern states. But I think it's kinda just the same as every other place. You got your normal people who are fine with everyone else trying to live their everyday lives and enjoy their time on Earth. And you got extremists who just want to hate everyone and everything and just don't care about the burning path they leave behind them. The only information I've ever heard was from my brother when he moved to Georgia from New Jersey. And as far as racism, he said that it was something he only got from the older generation of his wife's family. Not anything drastic, more like casual racism against black people. As for the everyday people he interacted with, nothing different than what you have at home. Different compared to the North. At least in the South you know if they are racist. Where I'm from they'll look at you in your face, smile, shake your hand, introduce you to their family and will be racist. Having lived in the South for school, I found many Northerners were way more racist. It's like they think everyone's racist because it's the South and they just let all their deep racist thought fly, thinking everyone will agree with them. Most racist people I ever met in Alabama, Georgia, Carolinas were white New Yorkers. Why ask people who can't possibly know? I lived in Birmingham, Al, for 5 years and it is extremely and openly racist. The South, I find, is more aptly where a lot of progressive find themselves the minority to the conservatives. Hence why you'll often hear of it being touted as more racist, but honestly they're just a super loud minority of racists over there. The more an area becomes metropolitan, the more likely it will have a large confluence, gathering, of different cultures, beliefs, traditions, practices, and are more likely to be progressive, which may or may not be directly tied to fewer counts of racism. But the more rural you go, the more the racism becomes an echo chamber for people of a smaller community. So do I think the South is more racist? No. I just think the ones who are a little bit ahead of the curve than the rest are stuck surrounded by people with outdated philosophies. Edit. Also op. Mecca not Mecca. Unless the South is hiding super-armored racism robots that the coastal states aren't aware of, in which case they seem to be more progressive than I gave them credit for. I feel like it's gotten a bit better since I have been alive, but much more growth is needed. It does seem like the Klan is pretty much gone from my area or too small to be measured. But still more progress is needed. I'd like to see the South, but as a gay man, outside of major cities, I'm not sure how safe I'd feel. I'm reasonable enough to know not all people in the South are racist. But it's got a racist enough history to keep me away. Personally, no. I've braced myself for trouble when visiting, but nothing happens. In TN and GA my experiences were pretty wholesome. I wouldn't have known if they wanted me dead like people did in California, the so-called melting pot state of cultures. Having spoken to a couple of non-white people who have been there, I am under the impression that the South is still more racist than much of the rest of the country. Their political statements and actions don't lessen that impression by any. I don't live in the South, but I have traveled throughout a lot of southern states, and the amount of open racism there caught me off guard. They thought that me being white meant I shared their views. It was pretty wild. I think there's a disproportionate amount of racism in the South compared to other parts of the country, but far from everyone in the South is racist. More of a loud minority that creates the stereotype of Southern equals racist. Having the KKK headquarters in the South also doesn't help your case.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.